Well, hi everyone. Today we're in day 4 of week 2. We're talking about diversions, things that really take us off track, things that have the potential where we lose our way. And today we're talking about the very heavy topic of depression and what happens when we walk through depression. What happens to our dreams when we walk through depression? It seems like two subjects that are completely opposite each other. You can't be depressed and have dreams, and depression really brings about the death of those dreams. Now, with this short video, 7-8 minutes long, there's no way that I can describe depression to you. That we've got a lot of resources to help with that, and so please message on the WhatsApp group or in the YouVersion or just anywhere. You know how to get in touch with us, but message us. We have lots of resources so that we can walk through that journey with you. But I just want to talk with you about this idea of depression and what happens during seasons of depression to our dreams. In our reading today, we meet Elijah, one of the central stalwarts of the Bible, just an incredible character. And he's actually coming off of great victories in his life, great victories in his ministry. But I think he thought that there would be a result to that he thought was very different from what actually happened, and it caused him to really go into a tailspin. We see him kind of running from that city, escaping the scene, and we see him in our reading today in a very difficult place in his life. In fact, the place that he's in is he's just ready to give up. He just says, "I'm done." He just says, "This is enough." He looks up at God and says, "God, just take my life. I'm totally and completely done." The backstory of it is, God, if people aren't going to believe with all that they've seen, all that you have demonstrated through my ministry, if people aren't going to believe because of that, then I don't want any part of this. I'm completely done. And Elijah's just walking through this very real thing of depression. He feels like he's in a pit and there's no way out. There's hitting rock bottom and bouncing back up, but then there's hitting rock bottom and getting trapped down there and feeling like there's no way out. And that's what depression can do. And in the church, we talk about depression because we know that many of us are walking through or have walked through seasons of that. And what happens to our dreams? Well, I just want you, as you're reading it, I want you to recognize God's nurturing care for Elijah as he's walking through depression. Maybe you've walked through depression and maybe somebody has said something to you. Maybe some religious person has quoted a Bible, or maybe said some motivational little thing to you and said, "Come on, you can just think positively about the situation." And you're going, "I don't know how to do that. This is so heavy. I feel trapped. I feel depressed." That's how Elijah felt. And what's incredible is to watch God's nurturing care. First, in our reading, God feeds him a meal. It's incredible. God becomes a waiter. He feeds him a meal, and then it's like he does it a few times, because Elijah eats and then he goes to sleep, and then God wakes him up and feeds him again and gives him a journey. In fact, he doesn't tell him, "Go back, Elijah, you can do this." He doesn't tell Elijah, "Why are you saying things like this? Why are you giving up? I gave you so many victories. Where's your faith, Elijah?" All the kinds of things that we might think of saying. God says none of that. God doesn't say, "Come on, Elijah, I put good big dreams in your heart, and then I've done amazing things. Read the previous chapter. Come on, Elijah, you can do better." God does none of that. God feeds him a meal, and he says, come with me. And he puts him on a journey. And I think Elijah needed those 40 days, those days to walk in quietness so that God could just minister to his heart. And then he gets to the mountain of the Lord, Mount Horeb. He gets to that place, and you'll see in your reading that at first, God just lets him vent. He just lets him kind of just spew some stuff. In a minute, we're going to see as you read that when Elijah's saying these things, he's saying a lot of untrue things that are not true. And God will make that case even as you get to the end of the reading. but he just lets him speak. It's incredible. The God of the universe just listening to a man just kind of venting his thoughts. Many of us don't have anyone that will listen to us like that. God will. God cares about us that much. And so God just lets him vent. So God feeds him a meal. God journeys with him. God lets him vent. And then he says, come, I'll meet you. And then that amazing scene that some of us may have heard plays out, where God says, go and stand at a certain place and I'm going to show up. And then lightning comes and thunder comes and earthquake comes and fire comes, and God is in none of those things. And Elijah may have expected to hear God in one of those things, just like he maybe expected that those miraculous things that he did would cause people to believe. But that's not what happened. And as Elijah waited, God spoke in a still, small voice. So how does God journey with Elijah? He first nurtures him through this season of depression. He walks with him through lonely roads. Many times through depression, we feel like we're all alone. We feel like nobody gets it. Nobody understands it. We don't even want to ask for help. But God walks with Elijah through that. Then he lets him vent. How desperately some of us need that. And then once he's done venting, as God starts speaking, he starts speaking in a still, small voice. This is the God who puts these dreams in our hearts. This is why we must understand not just the dreams of our heart, but the one who puts these dreams in our hearts. Because the dreams he put in our hearts are sustained well past seasons where we go through despair and we go through discouragement and we go through even depression. The truth of the matter is that we don't need a pep talk. What we need is the nurturing of the Lord. I want to speak very directly today to some of us that may be walking through seasons of depression, that we may be walking through that lonely road. We thought things would be different. We thought things would be better. And we listen to the stuff about dreams and we just go, that doesn't apply to me. Well, by the end of it, it does apply to Elijah. He just needed to walk through a journey, and God was going to walk through that with him. You know what we need? We need the still, small voice of God. That's what we need. We need truth, yes we do, but we don't need it yelled at us. We don't need it in fiery anger. We need it in love. We don't need a pep talk of motivation. We need to hear God's passionate love for us in the whisper of his voice. And that happens when we hear the Spirit of God. You can't get that from a message. You can't get that from a sermon. You can't even get that from a worship song. But you can get that from the Spirit of God. Every single one of us. When we become followers of Jesus, we're given the gift of the Holy Spirit. And when that happens, we can hear this still small voice as well. And today I want to challenge you. If you say that you're at that place where I've just had enough, that God would say, I have so much more. You know, I just want to end with this. Elijah's story ends in the most incredible way. He doesn't die, you know. Elijah's one of the few people in the Bible that actually doesn't die. He gets picked up by a chariot. God, his cook, God, his Google Maps, God, the one who speaks in a quiet whisper, also became his chauffeur and chauffeured him from this life onto the next. It's incredibly beautiful. But can you imagine if the journey had ended when he said, I'm done? Even for Elijah, but for the dreams of God to play out in Elijah, for him to pass on the mantle to someone else, and for us to continue to be blessed by the life of Elijah, the dreams of God, God wasn't done. And God's not done in your life as well. God's wanting to journey with us. And what we need today, more than anything else, is the still, small voice of God. Would you quieten your heart today in wherever place of sadness or depression you're in? And would you hear God's voice speak to you today, for it is a voice of love and care and nurture. May you feel the dreams in your heart being resurrected day by day as you walk with Him. God bless you.